and welcome to Lunchtime Series, proudly powered by leadershipbydesign.co, where we aim to add value to people's lives. You can listen to us live every Wednesday and Thursday at 12 p.m. on ebizradio.com, where we talk about everything leadership, coaching, and marketing. And you can listen to the Lunchtime Series on all your major podcast channels today. On today's coaching segment, we've got she's a career clarity coach. She's a career strategist. She's a mindset coach. She's a personal branding expert, and she's living that nomad lifestyle. Please welcome to the show, Rebecca Beaton. How are you doing, Rebecca?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. You're calling all the way from Vancouver, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just thinking, noon for your people, 9 a.m. for me.
A lot earlier, absolutely. So I mean, when we first chatted, one of the interesting things about the conversation I was really fascinated by was living the life of a nomad, and that's something you get to do, right? You get to live wherever you are and kind of work wherever you are. But before we go into that whole conversation, don't you want to give us a bit of background of you? And share about how you managed to live this lifestyle, and really tell us a little bit more about what we're going to chat about today.
Yeah, for sure. So my business, I'll just tell you briefly about that, is helping people who are dissatisfied with their job to get clear on what they really want to do, because so many people feel stuck and dissatisfied and don't know what they want to do next. So I primarily help people with clarity, but I also help them with transitions and, like you said, personal branding, how to actually get to where they want to go once they know. But yeah, we did really, I know when we chatted before, we really honed in on the nomad piece as being a little bit more interesting. And that's something that I wanted when I started my business, which was 10 years ago. And it was a dream of mine for a really long time to be able to just live. So I actually only recently started living my full dream, which was to not have a home address other than I borrow a friend's home address, but to live full-time out of Airbnbs. And it took me a long time to achieve that. It took me 6 years to go full-time with my business, have like a good, solid, stable, reliable income. And then COVID hit and I wasn't able to quite do my nomad thing. So I did it a little bit during COVID, but I feel like I'm really in the prime of it now. And I just live out of Airbnbs and Rubbermaids, and I have a car, and that's it.
You make it sound very easy. I must tell you.
We'll get into the hardship. I love talking about the hardships of it too, because it's not like everything's perfect and this is a dream. Like, it is my dream life, but there's still challenges. So I would love to get into that as well.
So I mean, what does a nomadic life look like for you? Because it's I think people do have that perceived notion that you just book yourself in there and you just have a good travel and then you experience a place. But I think it does take a certain kind of someone and a lot of decluttering and a lot of letting go to be able to step into that space and kind of get your brain wrapped around not actually having somewhere to go home to, right? I'm assuming that's not the easiest decision to make.
Yeah, it definitely has been more challenging than I thought. So when I was younger, I've done a lot of traveling, but I would go for maybe like 3 months at a time, 4 months at a time. And then I'm like, I am good to come home. I want to be home. And now, because I'm from Vancouver, so I am spending a fair amount of time here. I just don't tend to live in one location for longer than a month at a time. But I am moving around. So in a couple of weeks, I'm going down to Mexico, living in Oaxaca City. And it's hard because a big part of it is that it worries other people in my life more than me. So there's a lot of uncertainty in my life, and that can make other people, I find, really uncomfortable. I actually really thrive on uncertainty, and I'm not saying there's not challenges. Like, of course, it's hard, and sometimes I get anxiety, but I do find other people, especially in my family or close friends, will get anxiety about my lifestyle much more than I do, which has been interesting.
I've met you twice, and it gives me anxiety.
I know. Yeah, I seem to have a high tolerance for uncertainty, and being okay with that. But at the same time, I also just want to premise that I have sources of security in my life when it comes to, like, I have a fairly stable family, especially my sister. I could always live with her if, like, worst came to worst. I have stable friends. So, like, I have people who, if I was homeless, like, I would never end up on the street, which I know isn't the case for everyone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, my goal is I never want to burden anyone. I always want to have, like, for me, having money is very, very important to support the lifestyle so that I can have independence.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have to rely on other people, but I know I have that if I need it. So that makes a really big difference.
Yeah.
And not everyone has that. Yeah.
And I mean, the next part of that question is how having such uncertainty and having such fluidity in moving around like you do, how do you manage to I suppose the fact that all you need is an internet connection and a stable one. But how do you manage to?
Yeah, there's stories there. Yeah, so it's actually really funny because I used to always meet my clients in person. Like I said, I've been doing this for 10 years. A month before COVID hit, I ended a long-term relationship that I'd been in and decided to be a nomad. I moved to Mexico. 3 weeks later, the government was like, we're going to close the borders. You have to come home. So literally 3 weeks to a month before COVID, I decided to bring my business online, which was crazy timing because I would have had to do that anyway. So yeah, I have to have a good Wi-Fi connection. Anywhere I'm Airbnb, I always ask about, like, megabytes per second to make sure the Wi-Fi connection is strong enough. And I always have backup unlimited data on my phone. So if worst comes to worst, I can just hotspot to my phone. And I'm only ever doing video calls and even sometimes phone calls on WhatsApp. So it's not something that needs a lot of bandwidth, but I'm not going to get into it now. But I have a lot of stories about crappy internet. I've learned the hard way of it.
I'm like, so to add another level and another layer to this is how do you cope with relationships and how do you manage that? Because if you do fall in love or find interest in someone, that's kind of tricky because you're kind of you have this really high need to have the variety, to travel, to experience. How do you sustain a relationship, or do you even get into a relationship? Is that something you consider?
Yeah.
What is that? How does that happen?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I don't think there is a easy solution to that. Every situation is different and I have to find balance. My original plan was I was going to move to Mexico back in January for 6 months because I really want to become fluent in Spanish. And I have met someone and I'm in love with someone, and I'm now going for 6 weeks. And I'm like, you can come visit me if you want. I'm going for 6 weeks. And then I'm going to come home for a bit. And then instead of being in Mexico for 6 months, I'm going to come home for a bit. And then I'm going to do a road trip through the States, maybe for like a month or 6 weeks. So I've moderated my plans, but I don't think there's no catch-all answer for that. Yeah, there's no catch-all. And my relationships are very important to me. Like, I'm not, I also like to emphasize that, like, I'm not someone who's just like cutting out. Like, I have close relationships that I value a lot and are very important to me. So that is often a challenge of, I want to go away and I want to live other places. sometimes not safe places, and people can worry. And then I make friends other places, or I date people in other places, and then I'm leaving. So there is that hardship. So I don't see myself doing this forever. That's what I say for now, but I don't know. That's all part of the uncertainty.
That's the beauty, right? The beauty of it is like, if it ends, it will end when it needs to end, and if it doesn't end, it doesn't end. Like
and then it can pick up again.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like there's living. I love living, and I'm not saying I do this perfectly all the time. I'm human, but I love living in the process of my life. So I was actually just telling a friend this the other day, because about 7 years ago, I was $40,000 in debt. And I didn't have a business at that time that I could make a living from and pay off debt from. So I was like, okay, I have to serve in restaurants. I'm going to serve in restaurants to pay off my debt, and then I can start living my life.
Yeah.
I paid off all my debt. I had 40 grand a day. I paid it off. Great accomplishment. Last year, I decided to get in debt again. I got a line of credit to invest in my business and grow it. So I'm actually back in debt now. And it's so different because I'm like living the life I want. So I'm like, I can pay off debt, but I'm still living the life I want. So it doesn't feel like I have to wait for my life to start once I've paid off my debt. And it's such a different feeling.
So, I mean, you are a career coach, right? And you have that clarity. Don't you just want to tap into that for us and kind of go, so how did you get to that? Because essentially you were in a position where you couldn't pay off your debts. You weren't happy with where you were at, and you wanted to live a whole other lifestyle. How did you get to that sort of place, and what was that process for you? How did you get to move from there to there, and what changed, and what was that process like?
Yeah, so I always knew what I wanted to do from a young age. Not exactly, but I knew I wanted to work in the nonprofit world because I've always really cared about making a difference. And I pictured myself actually being like a self-sacrificing nonprofit worker. Like I will be underpaid and I will work hard and I'll be burnt out. And that was literally my vision for my life, which I achieved. Right. I volunteered a lot in university, got a couple jobs like program management, project management, environmental education, nonprofit organizations. And so I realized, and this is the thing, a lot of people have this, like where they have something they thought they wanted to do, and then they get there and they're like, oh, this isn't what I thought it would be. So I had that happen. And then I did spend about 3 years kind of searching, not knowing what I was doing. I was in my mid-20s. My whole family was like, what are you doing? Like, get your life together. And then I actually had a conversation with a good friend's mom who was a coach. And this was about 12 years ago. So coaching wasn't actually very well known back then. It's crazy how it's like exploded. But she helped me discover how I wanted to work with people on a deeper level to create transformation. And that, I don't know if this is true, but the theory that I run on is the more content we are with our lives, the more capacity we have to care about other things in the world outside of ourselves. And so that's what got me into coaching. But then one thing I love sharing with people is like, because a lot of the time I hear about coaches who are like, yeah, in 1 year or 2 years or even 3 years, they have their own successful business. And for me, it took 6 years.
Yeah.
I had a goal of having a 6-figure coaching business, and it took me 6 years. I have never heard anyone else say it took that long. I'm sure it happens, but like it took me that long. And so even that whole time I was serving in a restaurant trying to pay off debt, I was still trying to build my business, There was a long time in my 20s, probably up until I was like, up until I was like 30. Everyone in my family was like, what are you doing? like, you're broke, you're building this business, like, you just go get it. Even one time my mom was like, could you be more normal? Like, can you just go get a job? Right. Yeah. So I always like sharing that of, it didn't come easy to me. I had the skills to be a good coach, but I was too shy and I didn't know myself well enough to be confident in it. So a lot of time when I was coaching, I was very focused on like my own self-consciousness and not my clients. So it took me a long time, and then marketing and all this stuff to like get there. And that's a really big thing, because a lot of the time, I was actually just reading a research paper about this. A lot of the time, we expect, a lot of people, not everyone, will expect that when we find something we're passionate about, that it will be easy and there's not going to be any hurdles. And if there's hurdles, that means this must not be my passion or my calling.
I laugh because like I really love having conversations with people all over the world, but I don't get paid to do this. I do this for the love of so like there's even when you think that you are passionate about it, doesn't mean it's not hard work. There's a lot of hard work. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And it's like hurdles, and you still have to get good at it, and things don't flow and it doesn't work, and you fail and you think you suck, and you like, sometimes you think you're great and other times you think you suck. Like, yeah, a part of me loves now that that's my story, because I love just being able to share that with other people. Like, yeah, I grew up as like a very awkward, shy, like on the fringe person. And I love sharing that with people. I'm like, I'm an introvert. Like, yeah.
Well, and it's funny because it's funny that you say that, because when I'm not doing this and when I'm not doing work, I'm like, I wear a hat because I usually always wear a hat, and I always have earphones on, and I always have sunglasses on. So if you see me out in public, you probably would miss me and kind of go, oh, that could have been him, purely based on the fact that I'm completely introverted, and why I've chosen a job to like be on stage or be in front of people or train people or coach people. It's like, it's the very opposite of who I am, but there's a passion that I have for helping people. Yeah. So, I mean,
yeah, and I doubt it's the opposite. It's a part of you. Because actually, here's one thing I've noticed with myself and a lot of clients. Introverts can be really good at being on stage, because it's like you take on a persona and you're performing.
Yeah.
So even though it sounds contradictory, it's actually really not uncommon.
That's the best actors are introverts, right?
Really? I haven't heard that, but yeah, like I've kind of seen that with like presentations or talking, or like whenever the first time I public spoke, people were like, it wasn't good. It wasn't good by any means. I had a friend film, and every second word I said was like, but people were like, oh, you have a good stage presence. And I was like, what? Because I was like the shyest, standing outside this. If there's a circle of kids hanging out, I'd be like on the outside being like, I'm just gonna hang out over here by myself. Like, yeah.
So I mean, with this wonderful lifestyle that you now get to live, and the fact that you're living it, what are some of the challenges you face living a location independent lifestyle? Because, and I like the phrasing of that, location independent, because someone one day said to me, because I had a traumatic kind of relationship I was in once. And I'd moved in 1 year. I moved like 6 times. I moved house like 6 times.
Whoa!
Yeah, it's crazy. And someone said to me, they heard the story and they heard that I did this, and they said, so where do you call home then? If you've moved so much, you must be so unflustered and I was like, actually, the only place that I call home is where my books are, because I love reading very specific kind of books, stuff that make me think, stuff about your brain, stuff about, the world and quantum physics and stuff like that. So and that's what I said. I was like, for me, where my books are, that's what I call home, right? But I mean, when it's a location independent lifestyle, that's a whole other conversation. And so, I mean, what are some of the challenges you face?
Yeah, I really like that your books are home. That's kind of cool. Yeah, because I always find I'll have like I have 3 Rubbermaids of books, and then I have 2 boxes of journals because I've journaled since the age of 12. It's just like literally half my stuff is books and journals. But I've never thought of that. That's never felt to me as my home. So the challenges are a lot of uncertainty and instability. I move pretty much every month, so it's a hassle. No one really wants to help you move anymore when you've moved a lot. You know, your friends are like, I'll help you move. And now it's like no one. Actually, my current partner does, because it's still like new to him. We've only been dating since September, but so that's a challenge. Just, yeah, the uncertainty. I honestly, like, one of the biggest challenge is just like seeing other people's discomfort with it. It's really interesting. But also, yeah, like meeting people and saying goodbye. That's a big challenge for sure. And then I also have like, what am I doing with my life moments, right? Like, I don't own a place. I'm 35, right? Like, sometimes I'm like, I'm not married. I don't own a place. Like, what am I doing? You know, but I've also consciously decided I don't want those things at this point. But there's that kind of like, sometimes I'm like, do other people look at me and think I'm a loser? Like, you know, all those kinds of thoughts that I think we all kind of have sometimes. But yeah, and like I'm very, very independent. And that's my choice. And I know there are challenges no matter what choice we make. That sometimes I get lonely. Also, when I was in a 5-year relationship living with someone, I had other challenges, like feeling bored and like I didn't have enough space. So there's always those challenges, but there are the challenges that come with it of, yeah, other people were being worried for you and feeling like, you know, I want you to have more stability. I'm worried about you. Or yeah, moving, leaving people. Yeah, uncertainty.
Yeah, so one of the things, while you're talking through it like this, one of the sort of odd questions that I have is, do you find a sense of purpose from creating uncertainty for yourself, or do you find the sense of purpose of really experiencing and because we're so conditioned by what we're supposed to be in life. We're supposed to have a house. We're supposed to be married. You're supposed to have children. There's so many conditions that people place on us. But essentially, you know, when you take a deeper look at, you know, what's the purpose of what is it that you actually get out of this? It may be just having that wonderful, exciting adventure and like the adventure of the unknown that you get to experience that most of the planet doesn't get to experience. Most people don't live like this. And that's maybe redefining what success looks like, redefining what nomad living looks like, that you can really just be on the move all the time. And you can, as much as there is uncertainty, with the uncertainty comes such a promise of adventure and excitement and new experience.
Yeah, you nailed it. Whenever I go into those insecurities, I'm like, you know, you ultimately want this. Because it does. It keeps me on my toes. It keeps me alive. I like the learning that comes with it. I love, even when I'm in Vancouver, like I've been in Vancouver a while now. My dad was sick for a bit, so I've been here longer than I planned. But even still, I find I'm in that traveler's mindset where I like talk and have random conversations with people. That makes my day. But oh, sorry, my alarm's going off. Can you hear it?
No.
Okay, I'll just leave it then. Yeah, these are pretty noise canceling. So I like choosing that uncertainty. And I'll just add one other thing there, is that I'm a big believer of I can change my mind at any time. And I tell this to my clients too. And there's a really big thing in our culture that I've noticed of well, you don't want to be a quitter, you want to stick with whatever you decide, or this becomes a part of your identity. And for me, I don't feel this is my identity. I'm like, I could change my mind tomorrow and decide I want to like go live on a farm and get married and have babies. Like, you know, like I could do that, and that's okay. So I think that's really helpful too. And that's something I share a lot with my clients is like, we're going to talk about what's ideal for you right now, what feels like the best option for you right now, and know that you can change your mind at any time. You're just constantly experimenting, right?
So do you want to just turn that off, because I do see.
Oh, you can hear it. Okay. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So I mean, one of the before we get to our last questions, one question that's also quite significant is how do people know if living a nomadic lifestyle is right for them? Because I think listening to you now, there is, like, you know, some of the highest needs. Well, everyone's needs are different, but you know, if you look at some of the highest needs that we have, certainty is a huge need for me, right? But for you, for example, uncertainty really plays in your favor, and it's something that makes you thrive on. So,
but I still get a lot of anxiety from it. I also just feel like that's worth acknowledging.
How do you know this is the right? If someone's listening to this, kind of going, it doesn't seem that bad, I could do this. No, it's right for you.
I love that question. Okay. I think there's multiple right things for me and for everyone. And so I can share from my experience that I had a vision of this for myself that persisted, was there a long time, that I couldn't seem to shake. And for other people, one question I really like to kind of offer, especially with my clients who are looking for what they want to do, the question is usually, well, what do I want to do with my life? And I really like the question, what is it I can't not do with my life? You know, when you have those visions or images of things that you want to do. And so if someone is wondering, do I want a nomad lifestyle? That's a really good question to ask. Like, how would I feel if I just never did that? But the other thing is, how could I experiment with that and test it out? So, you know, it's like, rather than it being a decision of like, this is how I'm going to live my life now for the rest of my life. It's like, how do I experiment with that? Try it out, see if I like it. If I don't, I'll change my mind. Right? Yeah.
I love that. And I think that's, I think as you're speaking through it, I think that's probably the point, right? Is to kind of go, it's your responsibility to really investigate yourself to the degree of really understanding what it is you want, right? It's no one else's responsibility. And the beautiful thing about that is we do have choice. You can change your mind. You're allowed to change your mind. So if something really hopelessly fails and it just doesn't work, okay, cool. Then it didn't work. Then it hopelessly failed. And then you know, like, okay, don't do that. But if it hopelessly worked or hopefully worked in your favor, then keep doing that, right? I think that also, to me, like, speaks to a bit of purpose of life, right? Is how do I tap into why the hell I'm here, right? why am I here? Like, I mean, and I bring that into the conversation based on the fact that when I started the podcast in COVID, it also started right and smack bang in COVID, because I also, you know, had to be in front of people, and then suddenly everything had to move online, and I was freaking out, and I was like, okay, I don't have a business anymore. And so I started the podcast, and then I realized by doing this, I was like, I'm doing this for free. Why am I doing this? Like, I'm not getting paid to do this. And it suddenly dawned on me that if I had to leave this world, if COVID got me, and if I had to leave this world, would I have left it a better place? And suddenly it changed the reason and the meaning of why I do these conversations, right? Cool. I have people who listen to the show and they'll message and go, wow, I follow everything you do, and like I listen to all the shows, and you have such insights and you have such interesting people on the shows, and I'm kind of going, well, you know, if that's one person, then I made a difference, and that's the point, and that's my purpose. That's the purpose I live for, right? And I think that's why I'm sort of touching on that point, because I think it's your responsibility to investigate, like, is this a thing for me? Is it something, is it a way to redefine what the norms of work look like, and how can I thrive at doing that? And we have a wonderful example of someone doing it.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love like those questions. And if you ever want to do a whole podcast on the meaning of life, I'm down.
Let's do. We'll do.
But I love that. Because when the way you're talking sounds like, and the beauty of experimenting is being in the process of life. I feel like this is so cheesy and cliche, but like being in the process of life rather than a goal or destination. However, I actually do feel like I live my life fairly that way. And where my however comes in though is when I hated what I was doing for my work, I could not even access that. Like for me, and maybe it's different for different people, but like I don't think I could say I'm living in the process of my life without wanting to have a destination. And not to say I don't have goals, but I wouldn't have been able to say that when I was serving in a restaurant. So
yeah.
And there's actually research I've read too that shows it's from a book called The Happiness Hypothesis by Jonathan Haidt. Really, really good book. I don't tend to love books about happiness. I'm just like, okay, whatever. Like another book on happiness. This one's so good. And some of his research shows that, you know, is happiness an inside job? He says no, based on the research he's come across, and that a lot of it is an inside job. But there's two things we need generally as humans to externally to feel happy. One is really good connections with other people to feel like genuine, deep connection. Yeah. And the other is actually that we're using our strengths to be contributing to something that we feel is meaningful. And I really, really believe that, because I could not find how I did all the meditation and the mindset work and all the healing. And when I was serving at a restaurant, it was just like, I can't be happy. Like I can't settle for this. Yeah. So I thought that was really helpful, just to like, I don't know, kind of nail in. There's some external pieces that play into happiness.
I love that. So just to end off, a fantastic conversation, and thank you for spending some time with us. But if you had to sort of sum it up and just share some advice with aspiring, maybe lost, maybe sort of wanderlust kind of individuals who kind of gonna go, I want to work, but I want to do lots in life, and I want to, what would you say? What would you leave them with today?
Biggest thing I would say is write out a vision of what would be totally ideal. Doesn't mean it has to pan out that way in reality. But a lot of people I know from my work have trouble even admitting what would be ideal.
Yeah.
So to even get that on paper as a vision, and know that you can change that vision at any time. You can compromise in reality. It doesn't have to be exactly that, but just like really let yourself go into blue sky territory of how could you make it all work, and then kind of let go of how you would get there to start, and focus on what's the first steps from there.
I love that. Yeah. And just have a bit of a rough plan, right?
Yeah, it's not a 5-year plan.
Yeah.
I don't believe in 5-year plans. The world changes way too fast for 5-year plans. these days, don't. But like to have that vision, let yourself dream, let yourself have fun, and go wild with it, and realize it doesn't have to pan out that way. It doesn't have to be a thing that feels like a lot of pressure. Just like something that feels kind of exciting and scary that you can focus your sights on.
I love that. Rebecca Beaton, where do we get hold of you? If people want to connect with you, what is the quickest way to do that?
Yeah, find me on Instagram, Rebecca_Beaton, or just search Rebecca Beaton. I have a bunch of free resources at the link in my bio you can check out, or you can just check out my stuff on there.
Fantastic. Rebecca Beaton, guys, she's a career clarity coach, career strategist, mindset coach, and personal branding expert, living the nomad lifestyle. Rebecca Beaton, and you can check out all the description links are going to be in the description box below, guys, so you can get all those links there. Rebecca, thank you for joining me, and thanks for being on the show. It was a fantastic conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, that was really fun.
Let's do that, the meaning of life conversation. I think that's
oh my gosh,
that'd be a really
seriously,
good
one.
Let's
would
do
love to. Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
Have a great evening.
Okay,
Cheers.
take care. Bye, Kevin.
Bye.